Sometimes I feel conflicted inside. Part of me wants things to change, and another part wants things to stay the same. Part of me needs to express its feelings, and there's a part that shuts my mouth and doesn't allow me to speak. And I ask myself, am I a workaholic or am I lazy? Am I rational or am I emotional? Or am I all of these at the same time? The common view is that our mind is unitary. And we all remember those movies in which the main character hears voices and his personality is fragmented. We saw extreme cases of mental illness and believed that fragmentation always means something bad. The idea that we are lords of our mind is comfortable. It's much easier to control a whole mind rather than a bunch of entities of an inner society. So we cling to the mono-mind paradigm, and it brings us a feeling of safety. But what if our minds are divided in a perfectly natural way? What if our personalities are made of parts, and each part has its own role within our psyche? What if our inner critic, the perfectionist or ambitious part, the inner child or the fearful part are separate psychological entities that create an internal family? The truth is, multiplicity of the mind is not a new idea at all. It's around for more than 100 years. One of the first humans who claimed that multiplicity is a healthy and natural state of the mind was Roberto Assagioli, Italian psychiatrist, the founder of psychosynthesis and Freud's student, who stopped working with him 3 years earlier than Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was also convinced that our personality is formed from many different parts. He conversed with his parts and discovered that in his psyche there are things he does not create himself, but which live a life of their own. And neuroscience backs it up. For example, Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry, writes that subpersonalities are states of mind which have a common pattern of activity in time. Those specialized eyes have a particular way of independent processing of information and achieving goals. Our minds are multiple, and it's a perfectly natural state of our psyche. But in the course of history, we somehow pathologized this way of looking at the human mind. Because of that, the mono-mind paradigm is still a dominating perspective in our society. And there are consequences. When we see our mind as one whole, every weakness and vice will be equated with ourself. For example, if I happen to be lazy on Saturday afternoon, I may say to myself, "I'm so lazy." I judge the whole of my personality as lazy, which becomes a burden that affects my self-esteem. Then, not only do I struggle with laziness, but I also start to hate myself and feel as if I was broken or defective. If I look at myself through the multiplicity paradigm, I may say, a part of me is lazy. It's closer to the truth, as I also have parts that are ambitious and hard-working. And it doesn't affect my self-esteem as in the mono-mind way of looking at myself. Nowadays, there are plenty of modern therapy approaches accepting the multiplicity of mind. Voice dialogue, schema therapy and focusing. My favorite model is called internal family systems. It was developed by Richard Schwartz in 1980s. It allows us to get in touch with our parts and have a dialogue with them. Through the lens of IFS, we see our defense mechanisms more clearly and find the wounded parts of ourselves the inner children that carry trauma. I will never forget when during my IFS therapy I found one of my inner children who was carrying the burden of being judged by his peers and parents. I saw it as a terrified boy who was tied with ropes and chains, unable to move. I listened to his story and then released him, feeling as if I let go of a heavy rock. And not so long after the session, I noticed that I feel more comfortable with other people. My strong need to be accepted was gone. We all have parts that need our attention, compassion, and support. Look inside and say hello to your inner family. I'm sure they can't wait to meet you.